Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter here, joined by Austin Brubaker. The evening of the National Championship Tournament, I guess you should say. Top 16 tournament getting ready to get started. Austin, how the heck are you this evening?
Casey, I'm doing really good. First off, I got to wear a little bit of my Great-Lakesloons Christmas sweater. Also, got to wear a little bit of red. Got to cheer on your team, Oklahoma, going in playing in the playoffs tonight. Could be pretty excited about that. We'll be watching that game after we're done with this stream. So
I know you're
sooner,
just
right?
poking. I know you're poking. I am an OSU fan. I'm a fan of two teams. You know who those two teams are, Austin?
Who's that, Case?
OSU and whoever the hell is playing OU. That's who I'm a fan of, right? So tonight it is Roll Damn Tide. I sent a message to Carson J. Hobbs and said Roll Damn Tide. He sent one back, and so that's where we're at tonight.
Yeah, you know what, Casey? I thought you were a fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I thought that's why we're doing this, and not just a fan of Oklahoma State and whoever playing OU is. No, it's going to be a fun night, obviously. College football playoff, incredibly entertaining. So if you're watching that, absolutely feel free to be able to listen to us while you're watching the game. Pre-game stuff, I think, is happening right now, and then the game will start fairly soon. So we're going to talk a little bit about Dodgers baseball in preparation for the big game, Casey's big moment.
Okay, first topic, let's dive in. I am not of the ilk that the Dodgers need more pitching. It would be cool if Tarek Skubal fell in your lap. I think that's what would have to happen, or whatever that may be, or another reliever or whatever it is. So you kind of give us, you're the statistician here, give us your opinion. Do the Dodgers actually need more pitching, or are they good there?
Okay, so I think those are a little bit two separate questions, only because I think with Tarek Skubal, and first off, let's just address the overall status of where Tarek Skubal to the Los Angeles Dodgers is. Right now, there have not been a lot of rumblings within the past week and a half or so, ever since the winter meetings when there is a lot of buzz, a lot of noise. Could the Dodgers go out and do this? Things are kind of close to happening. There's been nothing of that sort recently. And I think this has to come to the Dodgers and with the state of where they are at as a pitching staff, because you have to understand the Tigers' mindset in order to understand what it would possibly take to get Tarek Skubal to LA. And this is going to be a little bit of a long tangent, but this is going somewhere with the Dodgers standpoint. So with the Detroit Tigers, they are in a state where they feel like they are competitive. They're still waiting for an additional wave, an influx of younger talent to be able to come into the mix, yet they don't feel like they can go ahead and give Tarek Skubal the long-term contract because they have been bit in the past by long-term deals as a team. So in order to trade Tarek Skubal, you would have to, as a Detroit Tiger, in order to sell it to the fan base, get equal value back, and more than equal value back, guys that can play at the big league level and guys that are going to help out in the future. So it's going to cost a lot to get Tarek Skubal. So then that brought into a lot of the rumblings of both a Tyler Glasnow and an Emmett Sheehan to potentially get a Tarek Skubal to Los Angeles. That's where a lot of those rumblings and stuff were potentially coming from. If you are a fan of both either the Tigers or the Dodgers in this scenario. Now, I think in that specific scenario, that is going to be something that would be much more ill-advised for the Los Angeles Dodgers, because I actually think there is some question marks for the Dodgers in their starting pitching staff going into 2026 with the pitchers that they have and with the depth that is coming up, not in terms of talent, but in terms of health-wise going into the season. So let's look at the Dodgers pitching staff of where it is, and then we can kind of reconnect it back to Skubal, what his numbers are. Just going for the starting pitching depth on the Dodgers 40-man roster. Currently, the projected 6-man rotation going into 2026 in alphabetical order by last name is Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Roki Sasaki, Emmett Sheehan, Blake Snell, Yoshi Yamamoto. Any disagreements with any of those 6 names projected 6-man rotation for the Dodgers?
Yeah.
Okay, where would the disagreement be with the projected 6-man rotation? Again, that is Glasnow, Ohtani, Sasaki, Sheehan, Snell, Yamamoto, not in that particular order, but those being the 6 guys that you have listed.
Tarek Skubal instead of Emmett Sheehan.
Okay, so we'll get into that in just a second, because I want to talk about where the Dodgers are at as a pitching staff wise to see if it is something where, because I don't know if it would necessarily be a one starter traded away for Tarek Skubal. I think it potentially could be, and this does not have to include a Tyler Glasnow, but very well could include somebody like a River Ryan or a Gavin Stone.
Fine.
Can the Dodgers afford the loss of that additional depth as well in their system? Because the 6 guys, as I had mentioned beforehand, that are currently part of the Dodgers starting rotation are Glasnow, Ohtani, Sasaki, Sheehan, Snell, Yamamoto. As far as optionable starters, these are the 4 guys that are going to be optionable starters for the Dodgers, assuming that Kasparius and Hurt are in the bullpen, which I think both you and I would probably agree that that's most likely scenario for them. It is Landon Knack, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, and Justin Robleski. Here's the issue with that. River Ryan coming back from Tommy John surgery. I think we all have a lot of high expectations that he's going to be ready for the season, but coming back from surgery, there is a little bit of risk. Gavin Stone coming back from shoulder surgery. What is he going to be and look like coming out in the starting rotation? Justin Robleski, while I think the optimal way, if you wanted to keep him on the roster long-term, would probably be out of the bullpen, because then you don't utilize his last minor league option. They might not have a choice at this point but to keep him in the starting rotation. And then Landon Knack, being able to, and I think we're forgetting how valuable he was during the 2024 season and consistent he was. That is the depth of the Los Angeles Dodgers, not counting the fact that a lot of the starters that are going to be part of the mix are likely to miss time throughout the course of the season, whether this is load management for what happened in 2025 or the fact that they were dealing with some sort of injury risks. So the question with potentially acquiring a Tarek Skubal is, can you trade 2 of those guys from that group, from the 10 group, and still expect to have enough starting pitching depth throughout the course of the season? I think there is a lot of question marks with the Dodgers pitching staff. The Dodgers consistently use a lot of arms to be starting pitchers. And for that, and especially because the next wave of pitchers are basically all at Tulsa, starting pitcher-wise, the next wave still has a little bit of time to be able to be
Jackson
major league
Ferris,
ready.
Jared Karros, Peter
all of those
Ubeck.
different guys are at Tulsa. I think they need as much pitching depth as you possibly can, which means the only way that a Tarek Skubal trade would in any sort of way make sense for the Los Angeles Dodgers, if it is a swap of a Tarek Skubal and very likely an Emmett Sheehan, because Detroit's going to value Emmett Sheehan more than they are a Tyler Glasnow, a young up-and-coming pitcher that they don't have to pay, that has a lot of years of control. That is the only possible way it makes sense, and they don't get rid of any of the additional pitching depth in their system.
Hey, did you know the Dodgers got Carlos Duran back?
I did not know they got
Yeah,
Carlos
they did.
back.
He is on the Oklahoma City Comets roster right now. How about that?
Wait,
Yeah, they traded him for Esteury Ruiz, and they got him back. So
interesting. I saw they also got, I think it was Chucky Robinson is back within the system, so he's back in Oklahoma City.
Chucky's a good dude.
Yeah, Chucky's a good dude. So
he was a free agent at the end of this year, and the Dodgers re-signed him, which
interesting.
I think they kind of pulled the wool over. Who was it they traded? But they
Athletics, yeah.
The A's, because they knew he was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. And if he didn't get major league time, then he probably would come back and sign with the Dodgers again, which he did. So the Dodgers got both Esteury Ruiz and Carlos Duran, which, hey, I know you don't want to talk about the margins, or fans maybe don't want to, but it's, again, those margins that a lot of times win games. So you're telling me that River Ryan, Gavin Stone, somebody like that would be the hang-up in getting Tarek Skubal?
I'm saying that the depth that the Dodgers have, that it is going to be an issue if you dive into that depth for a long term. Now, that doesn't mean that the Dodgers couldn't go out and get somebody that could be at Oklahoma City that they potentially could call up, but that would be more in the realms of an Andrew Heaney type. That just somebody that
Carlos
can be in Oklahoma
Duran,
City.
who has major league experience.
I'm talking about somebody that you sign on a minor league contract that stays in Oklahoma City until you're ready. You call them up to the big leagues, and then you designate them for assignment whenever somebody has room. What I'm talking about is 162. To get through 162 games, you are not just going to need the 6 pitchers that are on your starting rotation. I think we can all agree with that. There is going to be stuff that pops up throughout the course of the season. And so, which means that you need to have several guys that can come up and down throughout the course of the year and be able to help fill in innings and bridge innings. And what I am saying is, I don't know if the 4 pitchers that they have available, especially because I don't know what the health status of two of those pitchers are going into 2026 is going to be quite enough to get through the full season and feel comfortable about your pitching options throughout the entirety of the season. The Dodgers need guys that can be optioned down to the minor leagues and be depth guys as part of the system, because those guys are not just going to be depth guys in the part of the system. They're going to play a crucial role for the Dodgers throughout the course of the season. Do you want to sacrifice that as well as make a major investment in Tarik Skubal, who, yes, is one of, if not the best pitcher in the game of baseball, for something that already is a strength for your club? That is a major question for the Dodgers.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm kind of playing all sides of this, like we do with all the different possibilities out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong in any of that. Here's where I would push back, though. Okay, how many between Emmett Sheehan, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, any of the potential starters? Okay, how many innings total combined do you think they'll throw at the major league level?
It's a great question. Here's where I'll push back with this question, because that is almost impossible to project, because I did not project Blake Snell only getting 2 or 3 starts and then he's injured for half of the season.
Okay, if all things go well. That's the only thing you can do. You can't predict injury. If everything goes the way that you want it to, how many innings do those guys get?
If everything goes well, you don't have to worry about it, and then your starters, all 6 starters, are going to be there throughout the course of the regular season. But that is if all things go well, shouldn't be what you plan for. What you should.
What I mean with those guys, I don't mean with the 6 guys starting at LA.
Okay, if you're talking about yes, but you have to. If all things go well,
what's the maximum you could see those guys throw?
Again, that is entirely dependent on what happens at the major league level.
Sure.
You could potentially. It's almost an impossible question to be able to ask, because it's entirely dependent on Glasnow's health. It's entirely dependent on, do they want to provide a little bit of breaks for Yamamoto with how much pitching he did last season? What is Roki Sasaki going to look like? Remember, he missed a lot of time with injury last year. But with, and I'm trying not to dodge the question because it's an important one. But it is.
Yeah, you can't really answer it. It's all hypothetical. I'm getting us into a hypothetical tonight, which I don't usually like to do. But I'm just going to be real transparent. There's not a whole lot going on in Dodgers news right now. And we're just sometimes a Friday night in Big Town, we like to have a little bit of fun with these fun type shows.
Yeah, and it could be something I can remember back in, what was it, 2020? It was 24 when Gavin Stone had his breakout season. I think he led the Dodgers with 140 innings, and I don't think he was expected going into spring training that this is the guy that's going to be the guy that bears a majority of the innings. So things just happen throughout the course of the season, which means that you have to have, you can't just plan for the best case scenario and then assume the best case scenario is going to happen. You have to prepare for what is going to happen in the realistic and slightly worse than realistic type of scenario, and make sure that you have everything covered. Just because, and I know all Dodgers fans know this, the Dodgers the past couple of years have dealt with starting pitching injuries, and it was only this past season in the postseason where things all aligned for the Dodgers. And I don't want us to be misaligned to say that is going to happen going forward, which means that you need quality arms that can be optioned up and down. And the Dodgers have a gift of having River Ryan and Gavin Stone, even though, and I will fully acknowledge this as a personal level for Gavin Stone and River Ryan. This is not the state of where they would like to be and where they should be in comparison to a lot of other major league clubs. But you need guys that can fill in this type of role.
It is what it is. It's like Dalton Rushing. This is what your role is. Make the best of it. That's what it is.
As a major league organization, this is what you have to do, and you need to have these type of guys. And the next wave is not quite ready yet. Talking about a year from now, this is an entirely different conversation, because all the guys from Tulsa start to become eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Patrick Copen, Jackson Ferris, all of these different guys, Wyatt Kroll, Luke Fox.
How I miss Copen whenever you said that earlier. Yeah.
Hugh Beck will continue to be that. All these different guys are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft, which means that you're going to have a next wave of starting pitching that you can have guys be optioned, and then you could start to have real conversations about giving a River Ryan or a Gavin Stone actual runway at another major league club. But for this upcoming year, I think they are necessary, which means I don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
moving off of those
Well-
guys or moving off of too many of those guys going into the 2026 season.
If it's for Tarik Skubal, you do. He threw 195.1 innings. So here's what my homework assignment for you would be. You going to have a show Monday?
I will have a show Monday, yes.
Okay, so you can do this, and you would be the one to do this, and it would be best if you did this. I think CNAV's correct. It would be best if you did, because we didn't really totally prepare for this, so it would be a little bit of a hodgepodge and trying to figure things out as we go. I think if you spend a little bit of time kind of crunching your brain to this, the way that your brain works, I think you could come up with a fantastic show on this Monday. Now, keep in mind, we all know this is hypothetical. We're dealing in hypotheticals. I mean, the front office is dealing with hypotheticals. It's all hypothetical until it happens. Okay, so here's what I think. Whenever you answer a question like that, you have to start backwards. Mm-hmm. So what I think would be good for us to do here, and I would like to hear it on your Monday show if you have the time to, obviously, for you to figure out if everything goes well, everybody stays healthy with the top 6 starters for the Dodgers, and then the workload management that a statistician like you, let's say that the analytics guys in the Dodgers front office, Dave comes up and says, well, I want so-and-so to throw 175 innings. I want him to make so-and-so starts. And so he has that conversation. Then the analytics guys say, okay, well, I can tell you that his fastball velocity will be the best. He'll be at his peak for the playoffs. He'll actually, because it's like, let me give you a scenario here. So to maximize your profit at an Oklahoma State football game, at a college football game, you don't actually want it sold out. If you've actually sold the stadium out, that means your tickets are too cheap. Where you actually maximize the profit on your product is when you're at about 90 to 92% full, which means you've priced it so high that you didn't quite get full, but it was low enough to where you got enough people there that that paid the higher price that actually made you more money than if it would have been sold out for a cheaper price. Did I say that properly? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. So kind of what I'm saying is that's how I view pitchers. Yeah, you can get 190 innings out of so-and-so and so-and-so, but is it actually the absolute best production that you can get from them and or somebody else? So you say, okay, well, if it's the workload management we talked about with Freddie, with Mookie. So if you say, well, what if they, instead of throwing 190, they threw 142, what would that do to holding their velo? What would that do to letting them max out a little bit better? What would that do to their production? And then compare that to the drop-off you would have for the person who had to fill in the other 50 innings to get to the 190. So I think what would be a really good way for you to look at this on Monday is, okay, how many innings do you think would be the perfect fit for each one of the 6 starters? Mm-hmm. And then add that up for the amount of innings that you need out of your starters that you think would be the perfect amount of innings for your starters. And then I think you can start filling in backwards with the Ben Kasparius, the Kyle Hertz, the River Ryans, the Gavin Stones. And I think you could give probably as good of a detailed plan and map for that as anybody. Does that make sense? Did I explain any of that properly?
Yep. No, that seems fine. So what's going to be a little bit difficult, just because I don't know where I actually could find this different information. It's actually fascinating. The drop in velo as innings go along throughout the season. That'll do a little bit of digging, see if I can find this. But I actually did a show on a Monday where I projected out plate appearances for players that are on the roster. And it was supposed to be a show where, because remember you and I did that exercise. We were talking about innings pitched for pitchers throughout the course of the season. Yes. And I did a show where I was supposed to do both plate appearances and innings pitch. Well, I got talking too long, so I only did plate appearances. So I did not do something where I dove into innings pitched, which means that I actually already have a spreadsheet that is created for innings pitched that we can use as a little bit of tool. I'll just have to see if I can find some additional information to dive into that to see what realistically we can expect from the pitchers going into the season, and what can we we expect for the Dodgers as a starting pitching staff? Because yes, I don't think it's the optimal way to be able to utilize each one of these guys and keep them down at the minor leagues, or I don't think it's the best way to be able to maximize on the talent that each one of these guys have, but it is something that the Dodgers are going to have to do, and you have to give in a little bit of wiggle room for and some risk. So we'll certainly talk about that going forward. That does not mean that the Dodgers shouldn't be opportunistic about trying to make a trade for a Tarik Skubal, which will bring it a little bit full circle back into this, because Tarik Skubal is the best pitcher in the game of baseball, or one of, if you include Paul Skeens within this. I just want to remind people just how good Tarik Skubal is, which means that it's going to cost a ton to be able to get him, even though it is a one-year deal for Skubal. You look at the past 3 seasons, the consistent measure that I use for comparison for each one of these guys, Skubal is second in Major League Baseball in ERA. Paul Skeens has a 1.96 past 3 seasons. Tarik Skubal 2.39 ERA. That's pretty good, I would say. Just comparison with some of the other guys like a Tyler Glasnow. Tyler Glasnow the past 3 seasons has had a 3.42 ERA. Still really good. Tyler Glasnow is a really good pitcher. Tarik Skubal is just on another level. His expected ERA 2.65 comparison to Glasnow's 3.13 expected ERA. FIP and expected FIP right at or near the top in baseball. And what's incredible about Tarik Skubal is he strikes out a ton of hitters, but he rarely walks anybody. That is a special gift that Skubal has. Now, is Tarik Skubal an upgrade from just about anybody in the rotation? Absolutely. Is he that dramatic of an upgrade that the Dodgers need to make this move? I don't know if the Dodgers need to make this move. Their rotation is already the best in the game of baseball.
Agreed.
It would make it absolutely legendary. I think there's other areas in which they need to address first and then try to be opportunistic about it. Like we've talked about, the outfield or second base position, that still is an area that the Dodgers need to address and are going to address, is my expectation. So we'll see how they do that. But as this offseason continues to progress, be opportunistic. They were opportunistic with Edwin Diaz when he dropped down to 3 years, and they were able to get a really good player. Perhaps they could be opportunistic, although I think the opportunistic ability to get the best pitcher in the game of baseball, I don't think the price is going to be going down that much.
Yeah. Okay. So the one last position player, I think we're talking kind of out of our ass there about Tarik Skubal. I think that's pretty obvious for most Dodgers fan. That's a pie in the sky type conversation to have, but it's fun to have, and I think it's relevant to at least touch the conversation and at least explain why it's kind of so outlandish, or why it might actually make more sense than, because a guy like me hears that and I'm like, come on, we're not getting Tarik Skubal. We already have this, a guy like me. That's my first reaction. So it might actually, I completely changed my opinion on Teo Hernandez, right? So it may work that way too. So let's revisit just for a minute, and then I kind of want to get into all the outfield depth in the system, and I want you to kind of compare them statistically while I play some video. And we're talking about the outfielders and kind of not necessarily rank them, but kind of go through the strengths and weaknesses of each player. So let's revisit this from a statistical perspective, from an analytical perspective. I know they play different positions, but if the Dodgers have a choice, like they can go get whoever they want, because either Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette, for some reason, decides to come back in the years range, in the realm the Dodgers are comfortable. Which one do you pull the trigger on, Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette?
All right, so this is going to perhaps be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, because for whatever reason, there's been a lot of negative discourse about Kyle Tucker, because I don't necessarily
because he's an
know
Astro?
why. It could be a little bit because he's an Astro. It could be because there might be some speculation about him as a teammate, which I don't know if that's any true or if that's just discourse that is going on through the season. But if you're just talking from an offensive standpoint, Kyle Tucker versus Bo Bichette, I don't think it's any question that Kyle Tucker is the better offensive player than Bo Bichette. Comparing the two offensively against each other, past 3 seasons, I'll keep throwing this at with Kyle Tucker, 146 WRC plus the past 3 seasons. Bo Bichette, 116. Now, I know that includes his 70 WRC plus 81 game season. And
so just take it out and let's compare that then.
If you were to take that out, Bo Bichette has been consistently about a 120 to a career high last year.
Even without that, Kyle Kyle Tucker's been substantially better.
Kyle Tucker has been substantially better, and the underlying metrics as far as his expected weighted on base production has proven that he is who he says he is as a player. His WOBA the past 3 seasons, 379, expected WOBA 387. He hits versus righties versus lefties, and if Bo Bichette was a really good defender, I think this would be more of a conversation. However, Bo Bichette hasn't proven that he is a great defender in the field, which means that Kyle Tucker, I think overall, is the better player. Now, you can have a question about which one is the better fit, but for right now, as far as better players, is Kyle Tucker.
Well, what if I were to throw this at you? His power numbers are decreasing by the year. And substantially from 2 or 3 years ago. Yep,
and that is a totally fair argument. What I would
especially for the type of contract you're going to have to sign, the length of it.
Yeah, well, that is the entire question: is what is the exact length for each?
Let's say 5 years.
For 5 years, I mean, if you're talking about 5 years for each one of these guys. Okay, so I think this goes into
let's just say apples to apples.
Yes. I think this goes into a little bit of a different conversation because I think with the profile of each one of these players, there are 2 entirely different types of players, and I want to be able to measure each one of these type of players and be able to understand the profile of each player in order to do a proper evaluation. As we talked about on the show a couple of days ago, Bo Bichette is somebody who relies very heavily on his batted ball skills, and what I meant, and I went into a little bit of discussion with Jay in the comment section of that video about his
I read that. That was great.
And I think this has a little bit of a component to where I think Bo Bichette at a 120 to 130, 135 WRC plus player, I think is already maxing out of his actual production, meaning he has not shown that he is a super high, heavy power hitter. Yes, I know he hits 20 home runs, gets 30 or so doubles. But if you look at his isolated power statistic, that's ISO, a measure that we talk about. I think that's a better description of his actual power production than, for example, his slugging percentage. Because
what about home runs for fly balls hit?
Home runs per fly balls hit. Well, that is dependent on how many fly balls that you're actually hit. So that's not going to be exactly correct or accurate, because if you hit the ball in the ground a whole lot, but then you hit some in the air, then that's going to elevate your home runs per fly ball ratio. But really, you don't necessarily hit for that much power. For example, and I'm not saying Bo Bichette is this type of player, but if you hit the ball on the ground 60% of the time, but your home run to fly ball ratio is pretty solid, you're still hitting the ball on the ground for a ton, in which case the home run to fly ball percentage only counts when you're able to hit fly balls. So I think a better overall measure for power would probably be ISO, and Bo Bichette has consistently been around the 0.17 to 0.1819 in his ISO departments, which is pretty good. But it hasn't been something where it's taken that giant leap going forward. With Kyle Tucker, while it had declined a little bit, and I think that had to do, he had a really bad month or so during the course of the season, dealt with some injuries, tried to play through that. But if you look outside of the injuries, Kyle Tucker has been a much better power hitter than that. And I think this is a big distinction between Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette, and why I have a lot more confidence in Kyle Tucker going forward. We talked about this on the show. Bo Bichette doesn't walk. He hardly ever walks, consistently in the 5 to 6.5% walk percentage, well below league average. You know what Kyle Tucker's walk percentage over the past several seasons? It's about 14%, which means there is a certain level of stability that you are getting with a player like a Kyle Tucker going forward. And Kyle Tucker does not strike out a whole lot. If I were to ask you, which player over the past couple of seasons has had a lower strikeout percentage, Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette? I think instinctually we would assume that Bo Bichette would have the lower strikeout percentage, but it's actually the reverse. It's Kyle Tucker that has the lower strikeout percentage at 14.5%.
So let me stop you there.
Yep.
So Kyle Tucker strikes out less and hits the ball in the air substantially more. So Kyle Tucker, this is the game breaker. This is the deal right here.
Yep.
Okay. The fly ball percentage for Kyle Tucker is 44%, which league average for a fly ball percentage is around 35%. So he hits about 10% more fly balls and still strikes out less than Bo Bichette. So Bo Bichette, okay, if you look at him right here, Bo Bichette actually hits almost 50% ground balls. Okay. He is at about a 31% fly ball rate, which is about 5% less than the league average. And he strikes out more than Kyle Tucker. So he doesn't get the ball in the air and strikes out more than Kyle Tucker. That right there, to me, that's game, set, match in terms of an offensive player.
Yeah, and that's not to say that Bo Bichette strikes out a lot. He strikes out well below league
Correct.
average. It is in comparison of the two that you're trying to match them up and compare them with each other. With both of them are really good players. The thing with Bo Bichette, though, is if he does not have an extraordinarily amount of power and he doesn't walk a whole lot, he is very heavily reliant on batted ball data, which the past several seasons he's gotten 330, 340, 350 batting average on balls.
It's because he's good, though. I wouldn't take that. I wouldn't hold out against him.
I'm not disagreeing that is not because he's good. But if that takes a step back, you don't have something to push against that to hold a certain level of stability to that. If, for example, the injuries that have started to pile up in his career, which has led to him having a much lower sprint speed than what he's had the past couple of seasons, partially impacted by what he's been dealing with injuries, but still below average sprint speed, the athleticism is starting to decline. If that starts to catch up with him and his abilities as he goes up and ages a little bit, and the batted ball data starts to take a little bit of a step back, you're going to start to see the production start going down. I think, and this is something that I had stated, I think walk percentage and the power component are relatively stable statistics, meaning that I think those can be statistics that can follow along with you as you go along throughout a career. For the most part, there's going to be some sort of variability, but in comparison, relatively stable statistics. What I don't think is necessarily stable statistics throughout the course of the season is I know there's going to be some sort of decline with the batted ball data, which means it's a question mark of how quickly does that decline come for somebody like a Bo Bichette. Phenomenal player. If you were to get him on a 3 to 4 year deal, I think he would be absolutely phenomenal for the Los Angeles Dodgers. What is it going to be beyond that for him, and how does he fit in the roster? And if you're comparing him versus Kyle Tucker, I think Kyle Tucker is the overall better player. It's a question of fit. It's a question of contract, both dollar-wise and length-wise.
Yeah. Do you have both their numbers in front of you on Fangraphs?
I can pull up both of their numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. We mentioned their fly ball, and yes, it's so the way this works is anything below 10 degrees is a ground ball. So if you hit a ball 9 degrees, we always practice at 0 degrees. 0 degrees is right in the middle, basically on your back leg, and 0 degrees if you hit basically if you get 40 feet. So if you don't have something like a Hawkeye tool or a TrackMan to actually measure your launch angles, there's a very simple way of doing that. We've been doing it forever, okay?
Yep.
A couple of ways that you can do it. So if you're in a batting cage, go to the back of the batting cage and just measure off 40 feet, okay? And then if you hit on a tee and hit the exact top corner of the net, so, like where the net goes like this and then starts coming down, if you hit right in that corner, that's exactly a 10-degree line drive. So we always practice 10-degree line drives, which that's the 1 degree above a ground ball, right? And we always felt like if you practiced a 10-degree line drive and you're a little bit late in your swing, now you're going to hit about a 3-degree ground ball that's hit about 97 miles an hour to the one hopper that the second baseman, if it's not hit right at him, is going to be a base hit. Then if you're a little bit early and you clip it out front, now instead of hitting a 10-degree ground ball, you're hitting about a 30-degree fly ball. That's a home run. So that gives you adjustability on both sides. So anything 0 or anything up to 9 degrees is considered a ground ball. From 10 degrees to 25 degrees is a line drive. Anything above 25 degrees is where you make history with your home runs. Those are the fly balls. So do we have we talked that Bo Bichette hit substantially fewer fly balls, right? Mm-hmm. What is the line drive rates though for both of these teams? Anything in the 10 degree to 25 degree? Are you able to
all right,
line drive right here? 22% for Bo Bichette. For Kyle Tucker, I actually got it right in front of you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Line drive. So for Bo Bichette, do you have Bo Bichette's right there? Line drive 21%. Yeah. So they hit it. So Kyle Tucker actually hits Kyle Tucker hits more fly balls, more line drives, and strikes out less. There you go.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at Statcast, just because Fangraphs, Statcast, they have slightly different measures as far as the air percentage, the fly ball, line drive, ground ball percentages. Still relatively close. They're gonna give you an overall picture and what they're gonna have. And really, what I'm gonna talk about with this is, and we're having a conversation about each one of these players and their power potential, because being able to reach into the power in game is going to allow you to be able to get to the 130, 140, 150 WRC plus type of category that we've seen some players that have been really successful for the Dodgers be in. When talking about a Bo Bichette, just looking at his air percentage, which the way that air percentage is defined by Statcast, which is slightly different percentages, Statcast versus Fangraphs still measuring the same thing. I think it has to do with the different degrees and percentages that they go ahead and put into it. Air percentage is defined by fly balls plus line drives plus pop-ups. Bo Bichette has consistently been in about the 53-ish range over the past several seasons. Kyle Tucker has been in the anywhere from 60 to 70 something percent. And if you look at pull air percentage, which I know you can have a lot of different opinions about pull air, but there is a lot of power that comes from.
Oh, that's where the home runs come. There's no doubt. That's stats. I mean,
okay. So look at Bo Bichette's pull air percentage over the past couple of seasons. It is somewhere between 10 and 13%. Kyle Tucker is between 23 and 26% over the past.
It's not close. It's really not close. I mean, if you take it.
As far as the power production that they have. Now, Bo Bichette does things a lot different.
Yeah, but Kyle Tucker even hits more line drives. I mean, so.
Yeah, as to the Fangraphs version, Statcast actually likes Bo Bichette in his live drive percentage a little bit more. They probably have the degree a little bit lower as far as what considers a line drive than perhaps 10%. But it's relatively comparable. Kyle Tucker is more in the 25 to 27-ish range, and they have Bo Bichette within the 29 to 30-ish range. So they're both relatively comparable. But as far as being able to hit the ball in the air, that's more of what Kyle Tucker's game actually is. And it would be a much different conversation that you and I can have as far as fit onto the roster if Kyle Tucker was more of a boomer bust type of player. Then you could have an argument to where, maybe it is something where the Dodgers need a little bit less than that, and they need somebody who can put the ball in play a lot more. But both of them hit the ball in play at very comparable rates. There's just different measures of how they do it. Bo Bichette relying more on base hits, ground balls, and line drives. Kyle Tucker a little bit more walks and hitting for power.
Yeah, their average exit velos are both exactly at 90. So Kyle Tucker hits more balls in the air. He hits, so Fangraphs says Kyle Tucker hits more line drives. Baseball Savant says Bo Bichette hits more line drives. Whatever, okay? So let's just say that's a wash, okay? So Kyle Tucker hits the ball in the air more. He hits more in the air to the pull side. We're going to wash the line drives, and Kyle Tucker strikes out less, and their exit velos are the exact same. There's literally nothing that you can tell me on Bo Bichette's defense here that he beats Kyle Tucker in offensively. Like not anything that I can look at here where I can say, yeah, Bo Bichette's better offensively than Kyle Tucker because of this.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of I guess the one area that you could potentially look at with both of the players is perhaps the hard hit percentage. Bo Bichette, at least last year, hit the baseball harder than what Kyle Tucker was able to produce. Looking at the past 3 seasons between the two, Bo Bichette has a higher hard hit percentage, 46% versus 43%. It's just not always at the optimal launch angles to be able to generate into that consistent power. And I think that has to do with the fact that Bo Bichette just is a really good player, and he swings a lot more. He's much more aggressive hitter at the plate. Just a little bit two different styles of baseball. Both have made successful careers of themselves. It's a question of what do you think is going to be more sustainable long term, and especially if you're talking about similar years, giving out each of those two, which that's totally a hypothetical. I think the projections have Kyle Tucker more, but in a hypothetical where it's equal amount of years, I think Kyle Tucker probably projects as the better player long-term as an overall player. Now, if you want to have an argument, Bo Bichette fits better on this roster because we have younger outfielders coming up to the mix, and perhaps I don't trust some of the players that are coming up through the infield, and I want Bo Bichette to be able to fill into that mix. I think that's an interesting and fair argument. Where I would potentially push back on it actually doesn't have to do with the second base option. I don't think shortstop.
How did we get into this conversation, by the way? I had no idea we were going here, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know. I with Bo Bichette.
We ended up in Canada tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, with Bo Bichette, I don't think it is a situation where when you're talking about him as a player, I don't think the Dodgers are going to view him as a shortstop. Graded out one of the worst shortstops in the game of baseball, which means immediately he would start at the game at second base. However, based on our last show that we had talked about, what is one player that we think, and who is going to be a Los Angeles Dodgers long-term, that we think is likely going to have to move to the second base position at some point? It's Mookie Betts.
Mookie Betts, and then you have Ha-Seong Kim.
Which means that for a Bo Bichette, you would not just have to have confidence that he can play the second base position, which you have a 7-game sample size in the World Series of him playing second base, of which he did play some pretty solid second base, but I don't know. You can't draw really ramifications from 7-game sample size. So I have question marks about his defense at second base. And then what is he going to look like at the third base position defensively? Because long term, if in the next couple of years, Mookie Betts is going to have to move to second base, not because he can't handle the shortstop position because of the wear and tear that it's going to take on his body. What is Bo Bichette going to look like defensively at third base? And is the offense that he's producing going to be good enough to justify having a position in which you need to have some good offensive production? At that point in Bo Bichette's career, is he going to be able to produce enough and consistently enough with some of the defense that is an absolute question mark in which you have no idea about? Those are going to be some major questions that you would have to ask with bringing Bo Bichette to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Totally agree. Okay, so let's have a little fun here. The football game's getting ready to start. We're going to go about another 10 minutes. We'll get into maybe with the first couple of drives and then get out of here. Okay, so what I want you to do statistically, I want you to dive into who you think probably is the most valuable outfielders in the Dodgers system. We talk about them a lot. So who do you think that might be?
Oh man, that's a valuable.
Or just dive into one and just start talking about what they do well.
Okay, because there's a lot of different things that all of these guys do well. Just running through you some of the numbers, just because I want to remind you guys how many of these good young outfielders. I'm assuming you're talking about the guys in the minor league system with the Dodgers and the outfielders that they have. Let's just run through some of the numbers that they have, and we're gonna run through it quickly. WRC plus, and then Casey and I can have a little bit of back and forth about what some of these guys do really well. Just talking about guys in the system, leading up to guys who played at the AA level, all guys that had pretty solid seasons last year. Ryan Ward, obviously on the 40-man roster, 132 WRC plus. Chris Newell, 119 WRC plus. James Tibbs, last year, in combination with all of his numbers that he had in the minor leagues, not just when he was really good with the Dodgers, 127 WRC plus. Zach Earhart, 135. Cole Myers, who many people may not know about, but he's really good, 131 WRC plus. Depot, Josue DePaula, 133. Zaire Hope, 132. Kendall George, 131. Yes, Kendall George was about as good as DePaula and Hope were last season. Mike Soroto, 190 WRC plus during his time that he was healthy. And Eduardo Quintero during his season, 153 WRC plus. Why do I say all of that? Is because you have a group of outfielders that more than exceeded. You're talking about a group of guys that all were at least 20% or really close to at least 20% better than their league average competition at each of the levels they stopped at. And many of the players were 30% or even better than league average competition. You have a lot of great dynamic players that is part of the mix, and it goes deeper than just the guys that people have been talking about for a couple of years now. And Josue DePaula, great back to ball skills. There is a lot of potential with his bat and potentially being able to hit to some of that in-game power. There was a lot of home runs that I saw that were legit amazing, and it's really his eye that is special at the plate. It's a question of, is he able to optimize his in-game power, like we talked about with the Kyle Tucker in the Bo Bichette conversation. You have to be able to optimize some of the power that you have while also being able to keep some of the good bat-to-ball skills. Zaire Hope, obviously phenomenal with the power that he's been able to produce. There's just a little bit of question mark of some of the swing and miss, but a lot of the overall other tools that he's got are phenomenal. And then you've got a lot of different guys that are part of the mix. As far as questioning or trying to weigh the value of each one of these guys becomes a really big question mark. So I'll leave it up to you, Casey. Which is one of these guys that you want to talk about that maybe might not get enough conversation, but I think we should dive into a little bit more. What name stands out to you
the
today?
underdog of the group.
All right, let's talk about who do you think the underdog of the group is?
That would definitely be Zach Earhart, no doubt. He's a guy that Dodgers fans probably don't know anything about. I got to see him all the way at Oklahoma State back in the Tampa area in high school. He actually was a shortstop, so he has that infield background. He is a very good player, and he is super competitive. And he's the kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that he's not going to base his game on home runs. He's going to hit the ball hard. He's going to hit line drives, and then if he happens to clip one out front, it's going to leave the yard. He had his last year at Oklahoma State was just absolutely stupidly good. He was good with Tulsa last year, so I definitely think I'm not going to play video tonight because I've got the OU game and the OU Alabama game on my third screen over here, so I'm actually watching that. So you're just going to have to deal with me boringly just talking about these guys. I think the guy that's most overlooked is Zach Earhart, no doubt about that. I think the guy that is ranked the highest that I would be the most willing to move on would be Josue de Paula.
Okay, so let's go talk about Zach Earhart first. He is first off, I have not had a chance to be able to watch him. He got traded in the Dustin May trade last year, and he jumped right into Tulsa. So he did not stop by Great Lakes, didn't get a chance to be able to stop by. But just looking from afar with some of the numbers that he had, just overall throughout the course of the season, 272, 374, 439. Again, I stated earlier 135 WRC plus, but he walks a lot, 12.5%, while also not striking out a whole lot, 18%.
He's a damn good defender too.
He's a good defender, as you guys mentioned. He also had 37 stolen bases last year.
He's good, man. He does it all, I'm telling you.
He's got a lot of different skill sets that he does really well, and he's doing really well at the upper levels of the minor leagues. He was successful, a really good start of the season, 31 games with Boston at the high A level, moved up to double A, had some success, but really was able to jump off 143 WRC plus once he came on to Tulsa. He absolutely is somebody that can hit really well. ISO is about 170, which is pretty solid for Zach Earhart. He's got a lot of overall really solid tools to be a part of him, to the point where there's a question mark of, do you send him back to Tulsa, or with all the outfielders that are coming up, do you try to push him and have him start the season at AAA, in which he's one stop away from being on the major league roster for the Dodgers? That's going to be a real conversation, especially if he comes out in spring training and looks really well. Zach Earhart is a really good player.
The most underrated of them all. Now, Zach Earhart, I don't think is underrated in the sense that I think the prospect circles, maybe not Dodgers fans, but prospect circles know who Zach Earhart is. I can't talk to a college coach or a scout, any of them, and don't go, oh, yeah, hell yeah, Zach Earhart's a hell of a baseball player, right? Same with this next guy, but to a lesser extent, I think the most underrated outfielder in the system is Cole Myers. I think he will be a major leaguer. Now, he's going to be probably not an everyday starter, but I think he will be a major leaguer someday. I think he's a guy, he's maybe the second fastest guy in the system. I don't have that confirmed. But he is very fast. He's a guy that can bunt. He's a guy that can hit the ball the other way. He's a guy that can get a home run. He's damn good defensively. He's tougher than hell. He loves baseball. I really like Cole Myers. So I think he is probably the most underrated outfielder in the system, and probably the most intriguing outfielder, to where if you said, hey, if A, B, C, and D all get figured out. Now, that's a big if. I understand that, and there's still a lot of big ifs. But probably this is going to surprise you, but I would say the outfielder that might have the most amount of just raw tools. Now, I'm not talking about production or execution or even being a good baseball player or even being able to use these tools to impact baseball games at this point. But I honestly think the guy in the system that has the most amount of raw tools, that if every raw tool hit, I think would be the most explosive and most talented player, is Chris Newell.
Yeah, Chris Newell is, the explosive tools that Chris Newell had. I saw him in 2024 when he went on an absolute tear with Great Lakes and just started hitting bomb after bomb after bomb. The power potential in Chris Newell is off the charts.
But then he would strike out about 8 times in a row, and you're like, well, okay, Chris, we got to get that done.
That's the biggest thing for Chris Newell. It's similar to the complex of somebody like a Jose Ramos had when he was coming up through the system, where there's a lot of swing and miss, but the tools are absolutely off the charts, and it's about being able to put all of those different pieces together. Now, Chris Newell overall was able to have a productive season, and I think that's what he has to do. He has to be able to generate and hit for enough power in order to be able to provide for the offense that he has, because there's going to be a lot of swing and miss in Chris Newell's game. He's a phenomenal player. But as you had mentioned a little bit earlier, I think Cole Myers is one of the most under-discussed players that is part of the system. Because Cole Myers, you talk about all the different outfielders, all the names that are going to be brought up are going to be a lot of the guys that were at Great Lakes. It's the DePaula, it's the
kid can play, man.
It's the Hope, it's George stealing 100 bases, which was phenomenal, and I think people are underrating his offense ability that he had. We can talk about him in just a second. They're going to talk about all these guys. Last person they're going to mention is Cole Myers, but Cole Myers, with what he was able to produce last year, again, he was somebody who was 9th round pick out of Troy. Phenomenal season last year. Listen, these are his numbers: 269, 409 on base percentage with a 365 slugging.
At Double A, by the way.
That is combined with all of his numbers, but his Double A numbers are 283, 393, 379.
406.
Really good numbers.
Look at that, 406 to first base. 406. That's damn good, man.
He is so incredibly fast.
Yeah,
he's really fast, and this is perhaps the next best part of his game. He's incredibly patient at the plate. He draws a ton of walks. Last year overall in the minor leagues had a near 17% walk percentage. He is able to draw a ton of walks. Strikeouts are about 21.5% overall.
That's got to go down. That's got to get around 12%. That's the Drew Avens thing. That's what helped Drew Avens back.
Yeah, if he can get that walk percentage down, because the slug in his game is not
too
there.
High.
If he can get that strike percentage, I should say, strikeout percentage down, I think he could be somebody that can be really successful. He's had a ton of success at the minor leagues. But one person that I think this could perhaps be a little bit of the archetype of a Cole Myers, is what happened with Kendall George last year. Kendall George, especially after the first month of the season, he did not strike out at all, and that did wonders for his game. I want to look at his numbers.
He did that right there. He slapped it the other way. He was able. He hit 3 hop ground balls to the shortstop and just ran to first base. He figured out who he is, and he was okay with it. He stopped trying to add power to his game. Same thing that Austin Gauthier did.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. I'm going to read you the numbers that Kendall George had, and this is going to be the after the first month of the season, which first month of the season is, I believe, when Kendall George had his 3 home runs. He had the 2 home run game against Lansing in Lansing. I don't want to talk about that game. That game did not end too well for Great Lakes. But he also had a home run. I believe it was off of. There is the first round.
Such a nerd, Austin. You're talking about a high A baseball game, and you're still pissed off about 5 days before Christmas.
I am so mad about that.
I mean that in a loving way, Austin. The most loving way I could possibly.
Dude, they had like a 5-run lead going into the 9th inning, and they found a way to be able to blow it. I'm still mad.
Well, I'm a nerd too, because I remember the game myself too. So
I know. Yeah.
It just doesn't piss me off like it does you.
Because I was there for most of the games that week, and I was very invested. Here's Kendall George overall. This is not including any home runs he had early in the season. Since May 1st to the end of the season, 309 batting average, 419 slugging percentage with a 363 slug. This is a 133 WRC plus. Here's going to be the most important stat, because this is what took Kendall George to another level. A 16% walk percentage and a 13% strikeout percentage. Once Kendall George was able to get that, he was absolutely phenomenal throughout the course of the season. He really cut down on the strikeouts, the swing and miss, all the way throughout the season. Even looking at June 1st through the end of the season, he cut that down to 12.5% and hit near 320 with a 442 WRC plus. You're talking about a guy who unreal, God-given gift of speed that I have not seen matched. The only one comparison somebody is close is
Speaking
Cole Myers.
of speed, let me jump in just for a second, because we have a question about Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie De La Cruz is going to be right around a 4. He's going to be about a 4.1. He can go sub 4. Cole Myers can go sub 4. Kendall George, by the way, went 3.56 to first base.
Yeah.
3.56 to first base. That's not on a stopwatch. That is digitally timed. So Ellie De La Cruz is going to be right there where Cole Myers was at in that 4.0, 4.1 to first base. Now, I would say this before we get back into the Kendall George deal, and I wanted to get that in because we had a comment, is that I will say if there's a pushback that, hey, he didn't necessarily hit, he just kind of did that. And I don't think that translates to the major league level. I don't have a pushback for that. My pushback would be, we're all going to get to see what it looks like at the AA level. We're going to see if that right there translates to AA success, and we're going to get to see it next year. So I'm excited about that.
Yep, and that is a totally fair pushback because there have been players that have had really good speed that haven't been the big offensive producers or as far as power hitters, and they haven't all translated to the big league level. So it's going to be up to Kendall George to be able to figure that out and be able to try to find a way to add a little bit of additional elements. What I was most impressed about is he went from somebody who was striking out near 30% the first month of the season to somebody who didn't strike out at all. That has to be an element of his game. And then if he can find different ways to be able to take advantage of defenses.
Hold on. I was wrong. I said 3.56, 3.64. That's Kendall George. 3.64. Ellie De La Cruz can't sniff that. That is not elite speed. That is like Martian speed. That's just not even human. 3.64 to first base. And again, I'm going to say this again. This is not a stopwatch. This is a digital time. 3.64 to first base. Kendall George might be the fastest player in the entire game, and it might not even be close. That's how fast he is.
Oh, he's so fast, man. So incredibly fast.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm giving you you're seeing it right here in front of your own eyes.
Yes. Yeah, no, it is. And it's legit in person too. So incredibly special. I had a chance to be in Lake County when he stole his 100th base, and that you could see. And he did not play in the final several games of the season that year.
This is fun, by the way. We're talking about our babies, man. We're in our sweet spot right now, Brubaker. I'm missing the championship game. And I don't give a rat's ass because we're talking about our babies, man. This is fun.
Yeah, well, this was what I mean, this series that they had, Loons versus Lake County, this was a series that mattered so much to me and each one of these guys. And Kendall George, when he stole that 100 base during that series, was more than phenomenal. And I think it was something where he probably was dealing with something towards the end of the season because he didn't play in the final couple games of the season. Otherwise, he could have stolen 105, 106 stolen bases and continue to add to his incredible record.
Okay, so let's get to Mike Sirota. He is Paul Molitor Jr. Just look right here. The exact same swing. The head doesn't move. Everything revolves around the head. You just basically go straight direct to the baseball. When I say direct, I don't mean like you're just taking the barrel direct to the ball. I mean your hands make the most direct path to get your barrel to the baseball. No wasted movement whatsoever, and it's no secret that both of these young men, now Paul Molitor's not a young man anymore, but it's no secret they were tremendous to the opposite field, and Mike Sirota has, and Paul Molitor did too, good power to the opposite field. He doesn't just lob it out there. I mean, he does that all day long, though. I love Mike Sirota. So before we've talked about Earhart, we've talked about Myers, Tibbs. I'm still in the camp with Tibbs of I got to see it. He's a top prospect. I'm going to believe what people are telling me. I take that back. I don't believe what people tell me. I have to see it with my own eyes. I like to have a clean slate. He did some good things last year. I also saw some things last year from James Tibbs. I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of in wait and see for him. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean I haven't seen him enough to really give a honest evaluation as far as what James Tibbs is. From what I saw, though, let me actually throw some clips up of James Tibbs up on the board here. From what I saw from James Tibbs, I would say that I wasn't unbelievably just drawn back oh, crap. I mean, this guy's incredible. Wow. I mean, why in the hell did the Boston Red Sox he didn't do that to me. Are you following what I'm saying? Now, that doesn't mean that he's not that guy. It doesn't mean he won't be that guy. But right now, I'm not in it. I'm not in the camp of 1,000% sold on James Tibbs just because I haven't seen him enough. I hope I wasn't too negative there. And if he's watching this, he wouldn't be like, what the hell is that son bitch talking about? That kind of deal. I hope I explained that properly.
Well, here's the thing, and I'll push a little bit back for James Tibbs' sake, just because of what he did.
Hey, we have a $20 super chat. I'm cutting you off, Lot. I'm sorry, but I want to get to the super chat.
And I think we got one before that too.
Oh, we did. Yes. Okay. Hey, 300 GJW. Kendall George reminds me of Brett Butler. No doubt about it. I actually asked him if he has ever worked with Brett Butler, and he said no. He said I might have to try to get a hold of him and see. That was this time last year. If I get to interview him again, I was set to interview him this week, and he had something come up. So hopefully we'll get to reschedule. I will definitely ask that question. And then our man CNAB, keep the show going. 'Tis the season to talk baseball. So pushback, convince me that I'm being too weird here on James Tibbs III. I don't want to say, I'll just say weird. I'll say that.
All right. We might be forgetting how good he was in Tulsa this past year, which I get it. It was during a 36-game stretch, which you could definitely point to a small sample.
But it was all in about 4 games.
Okay, we can dive into that in just a second, but let's look into the overall picture of what the numbers actually were from those 36 games. It was 269, 407, 493 with a 155 WRC plus, not 110, not 120, 155 WRC plus with a 17.3 walk percentage and a strikeout percentage of about 21.5%. James Tibbs III, I think, is a really solid player. Now, he struggled once he first got up to the AA level when he was with Boston, which he got traded.
He went 12 for his last. He went 1 through 5 for his last 12. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which that certainly was contributing to the mix as far as the end of the season. But he was part of the Rafael Devers trade, which I think that this is something that we have to remember with James Tibbs. This is somebody who was traded twice during the course of the season. He was part of the Dustin May trade to go to the Dodgers, but before that, he was one of the main pieces in the Rafael Devers trade from San Francisco to Boston. So he goes from San Francisco to the Boston system, where they immediately promote him to the AA level, struggles for the first 30 games, then gets sent off to the Dodgers organization in Tulsa, where he starts to be able to succeed. There was a lot of stuff that was going on for James Tibbs throughout the course of the season. Now, I think it's totally fair to say I've not seen enough of James Tibbs to have a complete evaluation. That's totally fair. And you've had a lot more experience with somebody like Earhart because of his days back in Oklahoma State, as opposed to a James Tibbs, where you just don't have enough. With Tibbs, though, what he was able to produce last year, I think overall gives a ton of promise going forward. And this is somebody who's still got 2 additional years of development before the Dodgers would have to add him to the 40-man to protect him from a Rule 5. So still a lot of time, but somebody who, with what he produced at Tulsa last year, could be an option to at least somewhat early in the season, not necessarily starting the season, but potentially early in the season, potentially make his way up to the AAA level in Oklahoma City. Now, going back to Mike Sirota, because I think I don't want it to be neglected that.
So hold on, he was 21 for his first 100 at Tulsa. James Tibbs was, and that's after he had mightily struggled with Portland, Maine.
Yeah, I think it's Portland,
Maine. He was in I think the AA for the AA for Red Sox. I think it's in Portland, the Portland Sea Dogs. So he was 21 for his first 100 with AA Tulsa. Then he was 22 for his first 104. So then from that point on, he had 5 multi-hit games. So all of his production, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of his production that you're talking about came in the last 8 games of the season.
All right, so let's take a look at some of this really quick, just because I want to be able to address some of this for you. With James Tibbs, let's take his month of August, his first month within the Dodgers system. Because I think his month of September was really, really good. And we can dive into some of those numbers in just a second. But during the stretch that you were talking about, during the month of August, since August 2nd to August 31st, 228, 385, 359. There certainly was a less level of production that James Tibbs III had, but still during that stretch, he had a near 18% walk percentage with that strikeout percentage that it was about 20%.
Yeah, but he's going to be in the middle of a lineup. The walk percentage isn't going to matter for him to me.
Well, I think it provides at least a baseline level of production that you're able to have, and that really was able to help him going forward. And if you have somebody that can walk a whole lot, that's going to help you substantially. But then during the final couple weeks of the season, he hit 357, 460, 786 for his slugging, with still the same number of walk percentage, and somebody that was able to be massively productive. So I think it's fair to say a lot of that production came during the final 2 weeks of the season. We need to see more for James Tibbs, but during that stretch, I think his level of patience at the plate that he was able to demonstrate provides a certain baseline of production, to where even if he's not hitting too incredibly well, he was still near 20% better than league average because of his walk percentage that he drew, and because of his ability to be able to get on base. Now, somebody who I think could be and probably is the best pure hitter, at least from what we saw at the minor league level last year, because I was so incredibly impressed by it, was Mike Sirota. Yeah. How good was Mike Sirota last year?
Well, you just saw him throw the ball too. I mean, he can throw the ball too. So Mike Sirota's legit. I would hate to get rid of Mike Sirota.
Oh, I would hate that so much. And I get it.
He's got to be healthy.
He left the series in West Michigan with some sort of lower body injury, which I'm mad about that, because he was going to be a productive player for the Loons down the stretch during the second half run. But Mike Sirota was so good last year, and just overall skill set that he was able to have during his 270 plate appearances, 333 batting average, 452 on base percentage. Again, walk percentage about close to 18%, with strikeout percentage just above 20%, with a 616 slugging percentage. He's just overall a pure great hitter, and I think that's the big takeaway that you can have with Mike Sirota, is he can do stuff in the outfield, but just his bat was special last year. And I hope that as he works his way back and makes a return back in 2026, that the injury doesn't take away for just how good his bat actually was, because it was so special last year.
Yep. And then another very talented outfielder, Eduardo Quintero. A lot of people think that he has maybe some of the highest upside. Eduardo Quintero, the only thing that I would say about him, now he's very fast. He's an awesome dude. He can hit. He can hit for power. He can do all that. Only thing I would say for him that might be a red flag is the swing and miss, and that's a red flag that can really get you as you raise levels. If you swing and miss too much, Damon Keith, Jose Ramos, they're perfect examples. James Outman. At some point, the talent level, they're going to be able to hit your holes enough to where the swing and miss becomes more prominent than the good that you do. So that would be the only pushback I have on Eduardo Quintero, but I will say he is an extremely talented young man, and a young man that I think almost all prospect people would predict would be an everyday outfielder at the major league level.
It's not just an everyday outfielder at the major league level. It's an athletic center field playing major league outfielder with good production. That is what Eduardo Quintero Q, as they mentioned quite a bit in the dugout, what he's able to produce. And last year was a breakout season for him. This is a player that hit overall with a 152 WRC plus combined between Great Lakes and Rancho. Rancho was the affiliate at the time. 293 batting average, 415, 508, the triple slash line combined. Again, somebody who walks a ton. That's something that is fairly consistent with most of these guys. You're getting guys that walk a lot, an approach that the Dodgers preach, or guys that, especially with guys that are able to produce in this outfield mix, they're providing a certain baseline level of stability behind them. Quintero with a 16.3 walk percentage last year. Now, the strikeout percentage, 22, jumped up to 24% once it got to Great Lakes. That is definitely something that you're going to have to not monitor going forward. Last year, hit 19 home runs. This is another thing that might be underrated about Quintero, is he's a really good athlete. 47 stolen bases for him on the season.
He's very fast.
And I think this is what the upside of what a lot of people are looking at is. You're looking at a potential center fielder that can steal a lot of bases. That's got pretty good power. That's got a lot of different tools.
A motor that runs very hot.
He is somebody that can fill a lot of different boxes in the mix. It's a question of, can he get all those different tools to be able to mesh, and can he limit some of the swing and miss going forward in his game to allow him to be as productive as he possibly can be. Quintero, really good player, part of the system. I'm hoping that we get him, and I'm probably expecting, just with the amount of outfielders that are going to be in Tulsa next year, that he'll probably start the season in Great Lakes. Hope he's ready to get in the cold, because it's real cold here, and ready to get the season started with Great Lakes. And then eventually, if he continues to have the same level of production, he'll be up in Tulsa in no time.
Yeah, that affected Ronaldo Yeen too. Okay, so let me clip this back before we get into Jaron Elkins. We have a question from CNAV. Basically, what is the package you'd send to acquire Skubal? Who's off limits, and what would be too much? Then the Boris effect of no extension. So too much for you would be 2 pitchers that are going to be in your starting rotation. I think they're going to ask for 2 starters in the Dodgers rotation. I think they're going to ask for both Sheehan and Glass now.
It is very likely that they
is that too much?
If it's very likely that they could ask for more, but I think they're going to ask for more than that. I think they're going to ask for some stability long term in the system, and I think the Dodgers are going to push back. I think it very likely would be packaged around Emmett Sheehan. With, if you're just trading out Emmett Sheehan for a Tarek Skubal, even though it's 1 year versus several years of an Emmett Sheehan, you look at the upside that Tarek Skubal has. You could argue that it would be worth that type of investment, but it's going to be digging into several of the top guys within your system in order to be able to get a Tarek Skubal as well. And then you're looking at potentially some additional talent close to or at the major league level, because the Tigers are going to be looking for guys that are going to help the big league roster. And I don't know if the Dodgers want to invest in the major league roster depth as much as what it would take in order to get them, because I think it needs to be an Emmett Sheehan and another major league ready talent.
Who would that be? Who would that be?
I don't know who would that be.
So do you think let me ask you this. Do you think Emmett Sheehan and River Ryan's too much for Tarek Skubal, for a 1 year guy, for a rental? Come on, man. I've given my opinion on the outfielders, right?
Yes. I question the depth of the Dodgers pitching staff if they be able to dive into that. That would be my concern.
I understand all that, but is that too much? If you're the guys pulling the trigger, do you do that?
I wouldn't say that's necessarily too much as a package, but is that too much cost for the Dodgers and their depth going into the next season? That wouldn't be what I would craft the package around.
Understood, but if the Tigers said, hey, we want to, obviously one of your outfield prospects, but then we want Emmett Sheehan and River Ryan.
I think that would be right around the ballpark of what it would, roughly around the ballpark of what it would take.
I'm giving you an over/under. I'm asking. I'm putting you right there and saying, hey, do you take that? Do you pull the trigger?
I'm not doing that because I don't want to. I don't trust the depth within the system to be able to, for the starting pitching depth. That is my opinion.
You're very conservative. I would do it in a heartbeat. And I would go win that World Series, and then you can go sign whoever the hell you want the next year and do it, or whatever. River Ryan would be a tough one to lose, so would Emmett Sheehan. But there's plenty of young guys in the system. And, by the way, let me remind everybody, okay? The Dodgers, here's another guy that people aren't putting into the equation. The Dodgers did not draft Adam Sierwanowski. They did not draft him, okay? They did not draft Jackson Ferris, okay? They did not draft River Ryan, okay? So these guys, they did not draft Tyler Glasnow. They did not draft Blake Snell. They did not draft Shohei Ohtani. They did not draft Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They signed him. So all of these guys in the system, the Dodgers did not draft. They were able to flip. They're like used car salesmen. I mean, they get a used car, they fix it up a little bit, and they sell it for 10 times more in the past. So my pushback to you would be the Dodgers are just going to go get a Daniel Hudson and flip it for a Justin Chambers, or they're gonna take a Matt, who was the left-handed hitter that they got for River Ryan, Matt Beatty, and they're gonna go get a River Ryan. They're gonna take a Michael Busch who literally doesn't have a position. I always hear this. Why wouldn't Dodgers fans want Michael Busch to do great? I mean, he did everything he could for the system. He didn't have a spot. There is no the Dodgers messed that up. Even I said that when they traded him, there's no lose here because he had no spot with the Dodgers. It doesn't matter. Freddie Freeman is not going anywhere. He's awesome, okay? Shohei Ohtani, so root for the guy. I mean, there's no lose for the Dodgers in that scenario because they didn't have a position for him. So they flipped a guy they had no position for Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope, 2 guys that people don't want to get rid of. So my pushback is, would people say you're going to deplenish the depth in the system? Boy, not the way the Dodgers do business. I mean, you're talking, yes, if you're talking about the guys that they draft because they don't draft high because they finish so high in the league and this and that. But there's plenty of pieces that they can move to replenish whatever they need to.
Again, That is not necessarily my argument in this case. So, for
Right.
example, if you were
Oh,
talking
I
about,
understood. Yes, that's
it-
my response to people who say you deplenish the farm. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, okay. And I want to be able to address this because let's say it is an Emmett Sheehan, a River Ryan, and then an outfield prospect. And if you had to throw in another one, somebody like that was part of the farm system. Here is what your depth is going to be at the minor league level as far as guys being able to come up to be able to help sustain the course of 162. This is going to be your 3 pitchers that are going to be depth at the minor league level for starting pitchers. That is Gavin Stone coming back from shoulder surgery, in which we have no idea how he's going to turn out. Landon Knack, who struggled at the AAA level last year, and Justin Robleski, who might be a little bit more of a reliever. That would be your pitching depth if you traded away both an Emmett Sheehan and a River Ryan. You would be down to 3 different guys. My argument is not that you don't trade prospects to go out and get a Tarek Skubal. Tarek Skubal is one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball. My argument is the depth of guys that are major league ready, that can be ready to fill in innings for starters through 162 to make sure that your starters throughout the course of the regular season are as healthy as they possibly can be. I don't want to take away from that depth. Not that I'm not willing to give up some of the guys at the minor league system, at some of the part of the farm system, but it is because I don't want to give away guys that are major league ready, that are going to play a role on this roster. Because you mentioned Adam Serenowski, Jackson Ferris, Patrick Copen, all of these different guys. Are all those guys major league ready? I think they're still a year away from being major league ready, which means they don't have the necessary depth behind the 4 guys of Knack, Ryan, Stone, and Robleski, the 4 starters that are likely to be part of the up-down train from Oklahoma City, that are going to be completely major league ready to make a big impact on what could be a World Series caliber team going into the 2026 season. That is what my argument is.
I think one thing you're not putting into the equation, though, from your mathematical perspective here, is that the Dodgers are already at a 6-man rotation. 6-man, not 5. That's an entirely 125 more innings that other teams aren't putting into their map. So the 6-man rotation, I think, kind of skews the math into allowing the Dodgers to be a little bit more aggressive if they wanted to be.
Yeah, and I think that is a totally fair argument, and that is adding additional elements or additional pitcher in innings that would be part of the minor league system as opposed to at the major league system. So it comes down to a question of, would you be comfortable with depth at the minor leagues being Landon Knack, Gavin Stone, and Justin Robleski, and as injuries pop up, those guys being able to fill in the mix? And do you think that's going to be enough depth within your system? I think that's the ultimate question mark. And it's totally possible that they could go out and find somebody and sign them to a minor league deal and potentially call them up. Like, as I had mentioned, it would probably be somebody maybe on the caliber of somebody like an Andrew Heaney being able to fill in.
Noah Davis.
Or somebody somebody potentially like that. So if the Dodgers have somebody in mind that they could potentially do, then you could kind of talk me into that. But I need to see that there is going to be enough depth to be able to get through 162, because I need the Dodgers to be able to have this pitching staff healthy going into October. That is part of my main goal and configuration, which means that the guys that are part of the minor league system that are going to be optioned are going to play a major role in making that happen and giving that up, or giving up multiple of those arms up in order to be able to make that. I think you could be damaging yourself potentially long-term, or perhaps inflicting some damage into yourself long-term that might not be useful for you, or might not be as much good as what you're thinking is going to be.
And we're making all this way more complicated than it needs to be, because, to be honest with you, the Dodgers need to use all of that firepower to go get a hitter anyways, a position player, and that's really where they need. But, like, again, this is just talk around the campfire, and that's the part of the season we're in. There's nothing defined to talk about. So, hey, I'm going to get to that OU game and watch that. Another thank you very much to Ala Minerva, Jose. Wonderful job. But let me actually go ahead and leave. Let me go ahead and go to this. I've already got the link right here. I'm going to put this right here. If you have not seen this, please click this link right here. That's the Nicholas Cruz interview, and one of our very own, Jose, Al of Minerva, in our chat did the translating, and he was a rock star. He just absolutely knocked it out of the park. So go watch that, please, that interview. It needs some more views. I would be very thankful if you did that. So anyways, with that, Austin, I'm going to give you final thoughts, and we're going to get out of here on Friday night in the big town.
Yeah, it was a fun show. We're still waiting for some news. to be able to come for the Dodgers. So we're trying to think through all the different scenarios that the Dodgers could have. It's long-winded. It's a very detailed depth type of discussions of what we're able to have. So it's always excited to be able to do that. I think this is going to be the last show that we're going to have leading up until Christmas, because I will be off the 23rd and 24th. I'll be able to do my Monday show.
So no Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not able to do Tuesday. Tuesday I've got Christmas Eve services.
Okay.
And then the 23rd we do like a big Brewbaker family Christmas type of dinner. So I'll be going to that. So, Casey, to you, Merry Christmas, and I hope for your sake that OU is able to come and win this game. I have no idea what the score is right now, but I know that you're a big Boomer Sooner.
Quit being a prick,
fan,
Brewbreaker. You're not a natural prick. You're not very good at it.
I know.
You're a sweet, loving human being. Quit trying to be a prick.
Yeah. Okay. So I will do that to you, Casey. Merry Christmas to you, my friend.
Absolutely awesome, Austin. Once again, you absolutely knocked it out of the park. This was a fun conversation. One of those, like sometimes like you go to the coffee shop or whatever, wherever you may go and hang out with whoever it is you hang out with, and like you leave and you have no idea what the hell you talked about for the last hour and a half. That's kind of what tonight felt like. So Austin, great job. To all of you wonderful Dodgers dogs out there, thank you so much. To Jose, one more time, Ala Minerva, you are an absolute rock star. I cannot thank you enough. Nicholas Cruz, Yolbron Air there, they've all reached out and said what a wonderful job that you did. So just absolutely fantastic job. They were super impressed with you. You now have their trust, Jose, and I trust me with these guys. That is something that is very important. So Austin, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for being able to give a little bit of insight into Nicholas Cruz's story. He's a really good pitcher. To all of the super chats, man, we can't thank you enough. Just thank you so much. Have a wonderful Merry Christmas. Sounds like Austin will be on Monday. I might go Tuesday night if I can muster up the courage to go by myself. Might not. We'll play that by ear. So to all you wonderful Dodgers dogs, Austin, you guys have a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. And it's, as always, a great day to be a Dodger.